My name's Yatunde and welcome to the Cozy Corner. For today's video, I did a recording of me taking out storage my various different stickers that I've made and just putting them into a little sticker book. I will continue reading Xavier's Love and Deepspace Anecdotes. We're almost done. I have one more story to read and then I will move to Zane's, and then after Zane's I'll go to Raphael's, and then I will do a completely different thing. But yeah, I digress. So let's get started.
Xavier walks to the door and activates the intercom's visual screen, revealing the figure of a young man. He presses a button. It's in the mailbox. Take it and go. You! The young man is startled. He looks from the left to the right before he composes himself. He focuses on the camera. Goodbye. Wait, I have something to say. With a certain resolution set in his heart, he stares at his former friend on the other side of the screen. Be careful. They're going to find you. Anecdote number 5. The road's end. Lingering in one place for too long always leaves noticeable traces. Xavier has certainly thought about this. Over the years he has walked many paths, only to realize that there is no real difference between them. Despite their inevitable end, these paths are still worth treading. The fire blazes with such intensity that it leaves no chance for survival. Everything burns, leaving nothing behind. He decides to die in this fire. Xavier turns his gaze to the abandoned factory, which appears much like a military base. The criminal chose a good place to hide. He drags the unconscious man onto the snow, retraces his steps, and discards the man's identification and baton in a corner. The signs of a struggle have been set. The flames surge even higher, lighting the night sky. A few residential buildings are lit, and soon the urgent wail of a siren echoes from afar. At the bus stop, Xavier watches a police car speed by. As he prepares to board the bus, there's a cry behind him. He turns and finds a little girl sitting alone at the corner of the road, under a streetlight. The girl is young, a dirty rabbit plushie lying at her feet. Upon seeing someone approach her, her sobbing gets worse. Are you lost? Did you run away from home? Never mind. Cry louder so they can find you when I'm gone. Why are you so mean, mister? The candy in your mouth hasn't even melted yet. You haven't been away from home for long, have you? Xavier approaches her, brushing the snow off her head. Since you live nearby, you should hurry back. And what about you? The little girl looks up at him, her curiosity overpowering her fear. Did you run away from home? What's that shiny thing around your neck? Xavier rubs at his neck, choosing the easiest question to answer. I'm leaving soon. What a coincidence. A voice suddenly rings out from the other side. A young man, leaning against a sign that reads closed, stares at Xavier with an air of enthusiasm. He has greyish-brown hair much like Xavier's, though he seems slightly younger. Long time no see. It's been a long time, Xavier says, looking at his former friend. You'd follow me all the way here to let me know it must have been hard. I'm curious how you managed to elude us. His friend walks over. Hiding in plain sight as an inconspicuous guy, it's not much different from what I imagined. I thought you'd killed them before leaving. He shrugs, a twinkle of amusement in his eyes. You abandoned them, just like the backtrackers. How are you going to cover your tracks this time? Kill me? Or let me... Before he finishes speaking, a dazzling light flashes. When his vision clears, Xavier and the little girl are nowhere to be found. The man stares at the footprints in the snow and grimaces. A blade of light materializes in his hand, and he hurries to follow the faint energy ripple. Just a street away, Xavier lands in a narrow alley, cradling the girl in his arms. The flurry of snow he makes conceals their footprints. He picks up the fallen rabbit plushie, brushes it off, and hands it to the girl. If anyone asks, say this rabbit helped you. The little girl clutches her bunny tightly, nodding. You're very handsome. When I grow up, will you be my boyfriend? No. Why? Do you like someone already? Xavier hums softly, turning a blind eye to her sad expression. He hurries out the alley. I'm leaving now. You can watch the shooting stars later. The surrounding light gradually converges in the palm of his hand. The street light nearby, the searchlight in the distance, and the light from every window of the surrounding skyscrapers suddenly go out, and even the moonlight dims. The city is plunged into darkness. The sound of footsteps stop, then draws closer. Xavier opens his eyes, but he doesn't turn to face the person behind him. Instead, he gazes at the night sky. You'd never imagined to beat me in the past. Things are different. Besides, the teachers at the academy will only teach the best of the best. It's too dark, so much so that a young man named Isaiah can barely make out Xavier's silhouette. His position can only be discerned through the sound of his voice. You can guess how I'll erase our traces. Suddenly the darkened sky illuminates. Radiant light engulfs the two. Clusters of light streak across the sky like countless shooting stars, each shining brightly. The light bathes the city hall, illuminating every tree lining the streets, and in an instant, the entire city is as bright as day. Sweetheart, what are you doing here? You had me worried sick. The girl holds her breath, clutching the rabbit plushie in her arms tightly, staring at the sky. A young woman, tears streaming down her face, hugs her. The girl's eyes light up with excitement as she exclaims, Mum, a very handsome guy saved me. Arthur is jolted awake by an urgent phone call. An explosion has occurred at an abandoned factory in the southern part of Lincoln City, where strong traces of evil have been detected. An anonymous tip claims to have spotted the silhouette of the S-rank fugitive Greyhawk. By the time he arrives at the scene, the factory, enveloped in raging flames, has been burnt to a crisp. As for Greyhawk, he is currently lying shivering in the snow, on the verge of being frozen to death. Arthur has had a bad feeling about this. Turning to his colleague who arrived earlier than him, he asks, What happened? What's that guy from your team called? Greyish-brown hair. Kinda young? Doesn't smile much. Keeps to himself. The officer ponders for a moment. Is it Xavier? Arthur nods, a sense of foreboding creeping in his heart. He was trapped inside. His colleague's voice suddenly falls to a whisper, his gaze fixed on the raging fire. He couldn't get out. The entire city is blanketed in pristine silver, devoid of any sound. The heavy snowfall ceased by dawn, leaving only sporadic snowflakes to flutter onto Xavier's face. The fresh, crisp snow crunches under his boots, each step becoming more heavy than the last. By the time he reaches his home, he can only lean against the wall and slowly sink to the ground. After such a long journey, it's time for a good night's sleep. During that winter, everyone talked about not only the New Year's resolution, but also about the shooting stars that suddenly appeared after the abrupt plunge into darkness. Some speculated it was an explosion of a neutron star millions of light years away. Others suggested it was a reconnaissance aircraft from a neighboring country being destroyed, or a new type of biological weapon. A day later, a team conducts a thorough search of the factory. Eventually, in an abandoned partition of the third floor, they find a police gun designated ST-1101 and some remaining identification documents. Xavier, 23, served in the Bloomshaw Special Task Force of Lincoln City. In the winter of 2033, he honorably sacrificed himself during his solo mission to apprehend the wanted criminal Greyhawk. Anecdote number 6. The Passing Spring. In the year 2045, spring arrives. The day before New Year's Eve, Xavier finds himself in a cemetery on the city outskirts. Despite the passage of time, the disaster from 11 years ago failed to ravage this place. The sun, however, has bleached the granite tombstones white, and the details of the deceased have been obscured by grass and blossoms. But in line with the Special Task Force's customary confidentiality, the tombstones bear no picture or names, only birth and death years, and a string of special police numbers. Initially, Xavier only remembers ST-1101. As the years passed, many people appeared, Some were old friends, while others were strangers. Some he had spoken to, and others he had merely encountered once before. He didn't visit often, but whenever he did, there were always flowers placed on the grave. He remembers the month just after his death. The tenor of his funeral was not large, yet inexplicably everyone was crying. Luke, removing his glasses, was sobbing, snot running down his nose. Tommy, embracing Arthur, wailed loudly. Even Arthur subtly wiped the corner of his reddened eyes, though he turned his head away. It's a peculiar feeling, as if a part of his life is buried beneath the tombstone despite it being empty. It's not the absurdity of being taken by death, but rather the unfamiliarity of being remembered for the first time by those who should not remember him. It's like a traveller, after many years, returns to the place from which he departed, only to discover someone is still gazing at the spot where he vanished. Happy New Year! The florist takes the money and hands him the flowers. Xavier collects his thoughts and expresses his gratitude and also wishes him a Happy New Year. Within the cemetery, Xavier gently places flowers on the graves of those he respectfully refers to as neighbours. A young girl hurriedly wheels an elderly man past him. You always keep saying that. Luke this, Tommy that. Oh, when your beloved rookie Upon hearing his name, Xavier turns around. He sees the elderly man in the wheelchair point at him, his hand trembling. Isn't that Xavier? That's Xavier. The girl pauses, her gaze meeting Xavier's. She gives him an apologetic smile. I'm sorry, my grandpa is old. He confuses people when he's not lucid. Xavier shakes his head. It's all right. He doesn't say much, and the girl doesn't follow up. She simply leans in to whisper something into the old man's ear. Her voice is barely audible, but he hears her. Here, for the same reason we are. The girl stops Xavier from leaving, smiling. Excuse me, are you a relative of a police officer? Can I take your picture with my grandpa? Xavier turns his gaze to the elderly man in the wheelchair and nods. He wheels the old man to the edge of the cemetery beneath a lone pine tree. As the setting sun disappears, the overlapping shadows of the tree and the people dance upon the aged white brick wall. I may be old, but my memory isn't as frail as you think, the elderly man in the wheelchair says slowly. Long time no see, long time no see. Don't worry, I won't remember you for long. He laughs and coughs, gasping for several times. In a few more years, when people ask about Xavier, I'll have forgotten about you. Not far away, the young girl raises her hand, flashing an OK sign. Ready? Say cheese! 3, 2, 1. The camera clicks. After many years, he finally leaves a bit of himself in someone else's story. Do you want a copy? Xavier shakes his head. All right then, Happy New Year, the girl says. She waves him a goodbye and leaves with the old man. Xavier also smiles. Happy New Year.
Hello, it's me again. Thank you so much for watching this video, especially if you made it all the way to the end. I hope it's helped you feel cozy and you've been able to spend some time just resting and relaxing. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.